I guess it's like they're giving each other little tugs. She stopped and gave him a questioning look. Hello everybody, it is Regular Source here and welcome back to Harry Potter, but it's written by an AI Part 8. Let's hit 50 likes once again for the next video and let's jump straight into it. Starting off with Chapter 12. In the dark, Draco lived. Everything was black. Everything was dead and everything was silent. Everything was nothing. Ron's Ron song had become so good that even Draco was not able to escape. Draco had never seen anything so perfect, and now he couldn't. The only thing he knew was that everything he had imagined every day had been shattered with fear. This world was broken. He felt alone. Alone. He wanted to escape it, to come back. He needed someone to take him away from this world. Someone that could love him again, and not have the world destroy him. Someone who didn't feel like an evil idiot, but someone who cared and who loved him. What would be his world? Harry Potter, of all people. He loved him like no other person, but everything seemed too dark, too wrong, too boring, and Harry Potter couldn't find him. He couldn't find Ron either. Maybe he was just dead, or he had lost his mind. It didn't matter. He needed to find Harry, because the world was empty. Everything was dead, and only Draco knew how to live in that emptiness. And so he went on living. He knew how to find him. He knew what he was supposed to do, and everything was clear in his mind. He even knew what to do when he saw him. Draco focused all his power in his wand, his mind and his body, and he felt no fear or doubt. He was confident. He knew that he would find Harry. He wasn't going to do anything stupid, and he was going to make sure that Harry would never have to suffer for what was wrong with this world. He closed his eyes and breathed in deeply, his thoughts blanketing the world around him, and then the light came and he saw a beautiful boy with a perfect white face and perfect blue eyes. And there was something terribly important in him, something he wanted to protect. It was Harry. Sorry guys, there's like a baby magpie or something outside my house recently, and it's quite an annoying noise, so if you can hear that, I apologise. Harry Potter was standing on a snowy hill overlooking a vast field of green grass, where a beautiful white lake awaited him, and the sun was shining through the trees, making it so that the moonlight was streaming through the cracks in the trees and through the clouds that had begun to fall. He was smiling, his hair was shining, his clothes were elegant, and his smile was deep, warm, and loving. He was a hero. The entire world deserved to see him, but there was one very big problem. "Potter, you're not here. You're not... I've got you," Draco said gently. He had his wand ready. "What do you mean?" Harry asked the boy who had been walking up to him. He was a little tall for his age, but he was beautiful. He was so handsome and strong. "Of course I'm here," he said with confidence. "I had a plan, a brilliant plan, a great plan." He smiled so much he had tears streaming down his cheeks. "I can see the plan," Draco said. He reached up and touched his mouth with his wand. A magical wave of magical force surged through Harry's chest, causing him to fall to the ground. Draco leaned down with his wand still in his hand and whispered, "You're going to be fine." Harry groaned. "I can't even..." he whispered, and in that moment, Draco realized just how beautiful and smart Harry was. He was a wizard. So cool. "Yes," Draco said, and looked down at Harry. "Your plan was brilliant. It was the perfect plan. But you know what? It was just a plan, and it wasn't working." He looked down at Harry's hands. They were trembling like someone was trying to hold them. Draco shook his head and smiled. "It didn't work. It didn't work at all. And now you're stuck here, waiting for something you're not ready for. So, I have to tell you something." Draco started moving towards Harry. "What?" Harry asked. He looked down. His arms were shaking. "I know I'm not ready," he said. "Potter, you've been waiting a long time." Draco looked up into his friend's eyes. His eyes were filled with passion. Draco looked deep into Harry's eyes. He touched his fingertips to the tips of Harry's brown hair. "Harry, I love you." He kissed his friend's neck softly. Draco's hands held Harry close in his arms. They were warm. Oh dear. "I want to tell you something," Harry whispered. Draco was breathing down Harry's neck, and Draco realised that he was shaking too. I want to tell you what I'm not ready for. I'm not ready for you to go back home. Draco's mouth opened to say something, but Draco knew that Harry had already heard what he wanted to say. Draco took a deep breath. He leaned in and kissed Harry on the mouth. Harry's breathing quickened. Draco breathed out slowly into Harry's mouth. Harry's mouth felt warm and full. The kissing felt like warm butter. It felt really good. The way that Harry moved around Draco felt good. Oh God. It was like he was on top of Draco. He was being carried around like a bird. He was very sexy. Draco closed his eyes and let his thoughts flow. His mind wasn't in his head anymore. It was in Harry's. Oh my God. Okay. Yep, cool. Cool. Chapter 13, The Long Way Home. Elsewhere, Ron was fighting his way through a crowded corridor. He was on the top floor with only one door left to go through, which was locked with some sort of magical security. It made Ron really sad. He was fighting through his friends like a wild bull, and all of them were there, waiting for him. Ron hated it. Ron would have preferred they were gone. They were his friends, and they were going to make him miserable. Hey, Ron said to the people on the top floor. Can I talk to you guys? He asked them. Sure thing, they said, and started to walk toward him. Ron took one look at them, and immediately backed up. Ron felt a hand wrap around his wrist and pull him away from his friends and through the door, closing it behind him. They were gone. He turned around to find it was Hermione Granger, Ron's best friend. She was smiling up at him and seemed to have been watching him from the back of the room. Ron was terrified and could hardly contain his emotions and kept shouting, "It's a trap!" I can't do the Admiral Akbar, but that was as close as I'm getting. Hermione sighed and leaned forward and kissed Ron on the forehead before whispering something inside Ron's ear. It was a spell she had just learned. The light came to Ron and made him see it clearly as she spoke to him. We're in a realm of existence called the Dimension of the Unknowns. In this realm, there is nothing to do but fight your fears and fear for a living, while trying to make sense of what you're experiencing. None of this is real. Hermione smiled, as if it were just part of her job. Ron looked around. Do I have a headache? Should I get meds? No, Hermione reassured him and continued her description of the universe before Ron could even formulate an opinion. In reality, there exists only 3 dimensions, 1, 2, and 3. They all exist in equal proportions and are all called time. She gestured at the universe around her as she went. She then noticed that Ron was crying. Are you okay? She asked. She held out her hand and Ron shook it. Ron shook his head. I don't know, he said. Oh, she said with a sigh and gave him a hug. Good to see you, Ron, she said as she pulled away, smiling. That's just kind of out of the blue. Hey, Hermione, Ron said as she took a step forward to sit down. How did you know where we were? We didn't exactly, Hermione started to explain. Harry and I had this plan to defeat the prince, but we didn't realise it would be a bad idea. It was too complicated. It made no sense. We just thought, that's a big threat. We need to destroy him so the world doesn't get attacked again. That's how it all came to be. Ron nodded and she went on. You know, the thing about him that really interested me was his arrogance. He thought he could just fly all around the world and kill everyone without a problem, and no one would care. He thought he could be the best wizard on the planet, and when it became obvious that he couldn't have that, he took what little glory he had and turned it into an asshole. Making fun of all those stupid people he thought had wronged him. The only thing I liked about him was his heart. It was always there. Always, always, always. So we just went where his heart was and ran into you and Draco. And that's the way it turned out. Hermione glanced around. Oh, now we're in a part of the dimension that looks like the Forbidden Forest, she said. That's cool. Oh man, this Hermione voice is straining me. I've not had to talk as Hermione for this long at a time. I've heard some stories about the Forbidden Forest. Ron looked at her for a moment. It's supposed to be dangerous and weird and frightening. It's almost like the afterlife, but you know where the hell you are. Like, this is where all the witches live. I think this is where all the witches die. That's why they call it the Forbidden Forest, I guess. Because it's so empty. Hermione felt her stomach drop, and then it was just sitting there. Ron, you've been there before. You know that stuff doesn't make sense, she sighed heavily. Come on, I know the way out. It'll never lead to hell. Just come with me. She stood, and Ron followed her. She led them to a narrow path that curved past a ruined castle where the trees were thick and the path was flat. Then the forest was thick with greenery, a thick forest of trees. They passed through a small lake with small floating pools of water, and then out to a river that was deep and brown and green and filled with bird song. They walked down this path until they reached a small clearing, where she led them out, saying, Now we're getting somewhere. Let's take a look around. Ron looked around and saw that the place was full of trees, bushes, moss, and grass. He pointed at some of them. She didn't explain them to him. He took a look at the grass, noting its colour, its pattern, the variety of colours there. This looks like the kind of grass that's growing here, I think. Oh, and there's Harry and Draco next to some other flowers, he pointed. Oh, she paused for a second, staring at them. Oh my God, the way they're looking at each other now. She trailed off, frowning. And the way they're kissing, and also how they're running their hands up each other's... I guess it's like they're giving each other little tugs. She stopped and gave him a questioning look. She just shrugged, walking on through the clearing. I love how you can't even describe what this whole scene is about. And I think they're both just happy to be here. Hermione shook her head. I'm sure that when they're together, they're really into it. She glanced at her watch. We should get back. It's almost time to get dinner, and we should definitely be there, since I'm sure they want a snack for dinner or something, and I haven't eaten for quite a few days. Ron looked worriedly at her. We can't miss dinner at all. He went over to Harry and Draco and said, Guys, I'm hungry. They both jumped and looked at him in surprise. Harry looked rather embarrassed. Yeah. We're probably going to miss out on dinner, since there aren't going to be any food stalls down there either. He mumbled as he pulled on his robe again, trying to look as composed as he could be. I guess we have to go to the Great Hall first though. The head table doesn't allow any outside food. Draco laughed as he picked Harry up from the ground. What a load of rubbish. What? They're going to just throw us out? Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter, the best couple in history, are going to sit where they want and eat what they want to eat. No one wants them eating something else. He held Harry up in his arms and pulled out his wand. He paused, looking at Ron and giving them an odd look. Weasley, that song you sang. Ron nodded slowly. He knew his favourite song. That's a great song, Weasley. Draco smiled slyly. He looked like a baby that had just given birth, having only one hand free. Yes! Ron burst into tears. He wanted to cry all the time. It was so beautiful, he couldn't help it. Harry spoke up in a worried voice. Wait, what about Tom Riddle Jr.? Won't he get out too? Hermione snorted, walking up to the boys and looking them straight in the eyes. Nope, there's no way for Tom to leave. He doesn't have any friends left. Harry frowned, but Ron just grinned. He just has the worst name, he said happily. Hermione rolled her eyes and turned her face away as she and Draco opened a portal back to the school grounds. It was just in time for the day at Hogwarts to end. Geez, guys, that was 2 chapters of intensity. Lots of interesting stuff going on, like some tugs and whatnot. But guys, we have one more chapter left. So remember, let's hit those 50 likes so that we can read the final chapter. And then, unfortunately, we'll be done with Harry Potter Bits written by an AI. That'll be chapter 14 up next. So yeah, hit that 50 likes, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.